Hello everyone, thank you for joining and watching today. I want to share an exercise to, I called it free the breath. Reason is that our diaphragm, our main breathing muscle, as well as actually many of the other muscles involved in the breathing process, carry a lot of tension, and all of that tension is mostly anxiety related. So anxiety, tension that we carry around in our diaphragm. When our diaphragm is stuck, we can't actually really breathe properly. It leads to shallow, condensed, stagnated, very not nourishing breath. We don't really get the full prana, and that then relates and feeds back to the nervous system and only enhances the anxiety and the stress response. So I run regular breathing sessions 3 times a week, and we do all sorts of different exercises. This one I want to share today, it's not so much about calming the mind and it's not a kind of relaxing exercise, or it's not that meditative. It's actually like a real sort of exercise practice to disturb, in a way, that habitual holding pattern that we've managed to build up in the diaphragm. Because the thing is, obviously, with anxiety tension, because that is continued, it becomes habitual, the norm shifts. We get stuck there because we don't even realize that we are holding that tension. So just kind of brushing that off from time to time, really kind of like disturbing those patterns that we've built up, can be so useful to free the diaphragm so that we can then maybe do a breathing practice or a breathing exercise, or just go about our day breathing normally. So this one is not so, not so calming. It's more kind of, it's quite active. There's a bit of focus required. And it goes in several rounds, and you can pick and choose the ones that you feel comfortable with, or you can do all of them. Just see how you go with them if you like them. Like I said, it's like there's a little bit of work in this one. For sure, make sure that you are sitting comfortably. I'm actually, you can't see, but I'm kneeling on a whole sort of bunch of blocks and cushions, because that helps me sit upright with more ease in my back. It's not really challenging my hips in any way, so I'm quite comfortable like this. But I'm a great fan of sitting on a chair, or just really, this is not about, going into this kind of perfect meditation, lotus pose, super yogi legs, any of that. Just sit really comfortably. Once you've decided how you want to sit, check in again. Have you chosen well? This is always like the first really important step. Once you've decided and got yourself sorted and sat down, is this really the right position for you to sustain for the next, 10, 15, 20 minutes, however long you want to breathe. And taking a couple of deep breaths is always nice, I find, just to arrive and settle and really check in, tune in. Okay. And so the first exercise is, we'll take one hand onto the belly, right in the middle of the belly. You could even take both hands if you feel more comfortable with that. And we simply, for a moment, observe here. What do we notice? Can you notice this very subtle, gentle movement in the abdomen with every breath? You might find, as I'm giving you this task, that you start breathing a little bit more deeply. That's all right, but there's also no need. Keep your breathing relaxed. We'll be activating the breath in a moment. Here we're just noticing. And maybe you notice a very subtle, gentle movement in the abdomen. With every breath, maybe it's so subtle you can hardly notice it. Maybe it's quite clear and obvious. It's all good. So you might notice here a very gentle expansion as you inhale, like the belly is growing into your hand. And then that softens back towards your spine as you exhale. And so the first exercise is that we are simply going to pronounce that a little bit more clearly. So what I mean by that is that as we inhale, we a bit more consciously and actively try to expand the belly into the hand. And as we exhale, we gently draw that back. It's not a big, strong contraction or anything. We just invite that belly back to come towards the spine again. So now you might notice that you're beginning to breathe a little bit more deeply. That's okay. And at the same time, still try to keep your breathing really relaxed if you can. And at any point, you are very welcome to take a break if you find that in any way difficult to catch your breath. So let's try a few more rounds. Kind of imagine almost like the belly like a balloon that you blow up as you inhale, so it expands. And as you exhale, you draw it back, slightly active. So there is a gentle activation of the abdominal muscles involved in this that are also part of your breathing muscles. Let's do a couple more of these. And then we take a little break. You can take the hand down, let your hand rest. Breathe normally, no need to do any expanding or anything else. Observe here for a moment. How was that? What do you notice? Was that okay? Was it easy? Was it quite challenging? And then we're going to take the hands to the side of the rib cage, and it could be like, actually I feel this also, that your shoulders got a bit of a niggle with this one, and if it doesn't feel comfortable enough to have the hands around the side of the ribs, you could also just bring the hands to the front of the rib cage. That will be probably more comfortable for the arm. And maybe also we're just holding the hands here for a few breaths, and then you just do it from a felt sense, and you can take the hands down anytime you like as well, so no problem with that. But let's see if we observe any movement up here in the rib cage. So in that case, the movement might be more out to the sides and back again, out to the sides and back again. Notice if you got that going on, or maybe not. So cupping the hands around the rib cage, here we are literally right on the diaphragm. And with every breath, I have to move at least a little, even if it's stuck, otherwise we can't breathe. So you'll probably be noticing some movement here. That's your breathing muscle. You might notice how your ribs are flaring out as you inhale. And then they settle back down and come back towards the spine as you exhale. And then like before, let's try a few rounds pronouncing that a little bit more clearly. So try to breathe a little bit more kind of wide out into the hands, and then exhale. You will notice that coming back more clearly as well. So let's try a few rounds doing this. A little bit more consciously pronouncing it, focusing on actually creating that movement with the breath. So it's a bit more active breathing. And again, you might notice how you're taking slightly deeper breaths than normal to do that. Always keep checking in. Does that still feel okay? If you ever feel short of breath in some way, that you're not really getting the amount of air that you would like, then take a break anytime. And you might notice that this one is much easier than the first one, or vice versa. You might have found the first one much easier than this one. It's a little bit of a generalization, but often people, prefer one or the other naturally. And that's also got to do with some of those patterns that we've managed to build up around the diaphragm. Good. Let's do one more. Now we take a break, relax those hands. Just breathe normally here for a moment, observe, notice, what's that like? So now we're going to advance that one step, and it's really an invitation to just have a go and explore. You might find this quite tricky, or you might find it really easy. That's all good. That's the whole point. We've built up these habitual patterns, and we're just kind of messing with them a little bit by challenging them in some way. And so that way we're giving them a good dusting. So now one hand on the belly and one hand on the ribs. You can choose which hand goes where. So I've got one hand here on the side of the ribs, one hand on the belly. And you might have guessed it, so what we're going to do now is keep switching between the two. So we take one breath and try to actively expand into the belly. On the exhale, we actively try and draw that back again, so the abdominal muscles might join in a bit. And then the next one, we switch to the ribs and breathe wide. So breathe up into the upper hand here. Up and wide, and exhale, that comes back together. And then again into the belly. And we switch again to the ribs. So keep going, keep playing with that. See if you can switch between the two. One breath, expanding into the belly, and then drawing that back. Next breath, expanding, breathing up and wider, and exhale, that comes back. And then again, the belly. Keep going. Keep trying, keep playing. It might go like, there's a little bit of focus required on this one. That's the point. That's what we're trying to do. Let's try a couple more rounds. Last round, one more into the belly, one more into the ribs. And when you're done with that, release the hands, place them back down on the legs, take a normal breath here, have a break. Observe, notice what's going on here. How does that feel? Maybe there is even like now already like a subtle shift somehow that you notice something feels a little different. Maybe could already have quite an effect. Good. So next one, I'm going to do maybe 2 or 3 more little exercises here. We place one hand on the belly again. And so now we're going to inhale, expand the belly out. See if you can really go for it this time. We've had a bit of practice now. And then we're going to hold our breath in just for a moment, not very long. And whilst we hold the breath, we try to push the belly out even a little bit more. So really activating here. And it feels like building up a bit of pressure, like in a pressure cooker. And then that literally takes like a second or two, so not very long to hold the breath. And then we release the breath. That could even be through the nose, the mouth if you want, but also through the nose. And we draw the belly back in with that release of the breath and release of that pressure that we've built up. So let's have a go. Inhaling, expanding the belly a bit more strongly here. Hold the breath and push it out a bit more. And draw the belly back in. And again, inhaling. Push the belly out, hold the breath and push it a bit more. And release. Carry on going in your own rhythm here. If you want to take an extra breath between these rounds, go ahead. Always fine to just take an extra breath so you never feel like you are struggling for breath. Huh? Let's do 2 more rounds of this. When you're done with that, release. Relax your hand. Take a little break. If you feel like you want to move a little bit between these rounds, go ahead. Or maybe you feel like you need to change your sitting position. That's also fine. Or maybe just orienting yourself, looking around your room. Notice what's going on. What's happening in the body after these little exercises. So maybe you notice a little bit of heat rising, or maybe you notice literally the movement of your diaphragm waking up a little bit. You might notice some effect from this kind of playing with this pressure system in our body. The diaphragm is part of this internal pressure regulating system that we have going on. So the next exercise, hand on the belly and second hand on the ribs. And for this one, we inhale and expand the belly out again, quite actively again, and then exhale and really use the abdominal muscles, contract here a little bit more consciously and draw the belly back on your exhale. And now we hold the breath. And whilst we hold the breath out, again, just for a second or two, we're going to try and relax that abdominal contraction. So we try to relax the abdominals. And then we inhale again, expand the belly and keep going. And again, you can always take an extra breath between rounds, no problem at all. Let's try to do it together. Inhaling, expand the belly. Exhale, really activate your abdominal muscles. Draw the belly back. Hold the breath out and try to relax the abdominal muscles. Inhale again. Expand the belly. Exhale, draw the belly back. Use your abdominals. As you hold the breath out, relax the abdominal muscles. Inhale, carry on going. So whilst you're going, the reason we have the other hand on the rib cage, just observe if you notice something happening there at that moment that you relax the abdominal muscles. Do you feel the ribs flaring out just a little bit as you release the abdominal contraction? have a little go at that, just observing what's happening there in the rib cage. And my tip for this one is, it's easier if you really engage those abdominal muscles, drawing back on that exhalation, because then it's easier to release them again, because you notice them, you feel them, you're more aware of them in the first place. Let's do 2 or 3 more rounds of this. Last one. And then relax your hands. Breathe normally. Take a break. Observe, notice, how does that feel? As you're now taking your normal breaths, observe the movement of your diaphragm. What does that feel like? This one really plays with that pressure system. So it's also bound to have an effect on the pelvic floor, that whole abdominal cavity. Because it's activating a little bit that pressure exchange, is going to help the movement of the fluids in the body. It's kind of a whole bunch of things related to this, and it's kind of little nice side effects. But the main thing is that we've really disturbed the way that we might be habitually holding our diaphragm. Really kind of just went, poked it a little bit, brushed it off, disturbed it. Good. And then I really like following this up with my version of Kapalabhati, which is a little bit different. So the way I like practicing this, and you can have a hand on your belly, is to inhale, expand that abdomen a little bit into the hand, and then on the exhale, doing little puffs by contracting very gently the abdominal muscles to puff all of the air out along the exhalation. And only then we take another inhale. So it's not in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, quite fast as we would do it traditionally, but really quite gentle. So I'll do it with you if you want to have a go. So let's inhale and expand into the abdomen. Using gentle contractions, little puffs. Until all the air is out, and then you inhale again and carry on going. Keep going, keep trying. So I really like to make this super gentle. I'm thinking of little candy floss puffs. That's as light and subtle and calm and quiet and sweet as it is here in the engagement. It's almost not, from the outside, somebody watching you might not even realize that this is what you're doing. So really trying to keep it quite calm, but still we are activating, but in a very subtle way. Let's do a few more rounds of that. You might take 4 puffs, you might take 10 puffs, it doesn't matter. Find your own rhythm with it. Let's do one more round in your own time. And when you finish that, see if you can really empty out those lungs. And then we take a really big, full, almost chesty breath in when you're ready. And then hold the breath here. And you hold the breath up here for however long will feel comfortable for you. That could be quite some time or only a few seconds. And as and when it feels is the time, you slowly release the breath from here. So I'll leave you to finish that in your own time. And as and when you've released that last final breath, you can take your hand down again and breathe normally and simply notice, observe. And take a little note of the movement of the breath. Can you notice the movement of the diaphragm? Can you notice the natural expansion in your body as you inhale and the emptying out, the release as you exhale? How does your breathing feel now? Any different? I don't know. Maybe not. That's okay. So, as always, I'd love your questions, comments, feedback. What did you notice? Did you manage? Which one did you find challenging? Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Take care.